is your number one station, your official station. You know, do it.
Annulment proof, your number one NFP station. All NFP every week, in and out. And this time it's getting furrier and furrier. Why is that happening? How could this happen? And it's such a perfect Catholic family as ours, okay? So, rumor is, my daughter has been reporting, my youngest daughter, that she is a, what is she? I got to write this down. Polyamorous furry. And I'm thinking, oh, I think I've heard of that stuff. What? That's weird. That's just weird. Okay, so is this like the new punk rock or what? There's an attraction to it to these kids because when they're feeling, I don't know, like they need to express themselves or in a safe space or whatever, they get with the furry guys. All right, so what's wrong with furry? You're just dressing up. What's the big deal, right? It's like it's not intrinsically wrong to put on. They call it a fursuit, not a costume. Okay, but the place is all those, like the vast majority, they're full of like old perverts and other weirdos and stuff like that. I'm sure you probably don't want to hear some of that, some of you furry types out there, but it's just what it is, and we're going to get into it a bit. Therians think they are actually cats and dogs and things like that, and there's a bunch of Therians there and just older guys and all sorts of you-know-who's in the, quote, furry community, okay? So I'm looking into this and I'm thinking, well, this is just more complaining, right? Where did this come from? How could this be accepted? What's going on? And we're going to go right back to what NFP is, which is a redefinition of marriage. We're taking what is primary and objective, which is procreation, and we're making it secondary. We only need to be open to it, right? Right. So I thought there's just a couple videos that have come up, 2 or 3. We're going to go through those real quick on these related topics and then explain why things like IVF, divorce, contraception, let's see, what else? What else did I write? You know, the standard laundry list. And, you know, homo, trans and stuff. Why that is all squarely to be laid at the foot of NFP. How NFP makes all things natural. Trent Horn did a kind of a cool little video about some of this topic that we're speaking of. And again, then I'm going to go into some of the how and why and where did we get all this. Nature is in your mind and in your heart and in your desires rather than in objectivity. All right. So take it away.
Yeah, and we could try to meow.
The normal dog then tries to get help from Ms. Social Justice Warrior.
Miss Madison?
Oh, hey, Gulliver, you're back. Did you find Barry?
Yeah, we've got to talk.
He seems like a nice guy.
Oh, great guy, great guy. He thinks he's a cat.
He thinks he's a cat?
Yeah, he's over there talking about yarn.
That's really
purring.
Funny. With his yarn and purring. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I cut it shorter, but this dog is going on and on how he's a cat and he's just licking and he's doing all this cat stuff. And, you know, what's the big deal, right? It's cool, right? It's, you know, it's just him expressing himself, how he feels and he needs that safe space. Okay, keep going.
Woof, and licking.
Well, that's okay, isn't it?
Well, I think you should talk to him.
About what?
Well, about being more like a dog.
Gulliver, you're really struggling with this.
It's weird.
It's not weird, just different.
Like Laura Horn says, they're not disordered, they're just differently ordered. And that is exactly what NFP has given us. It's not weird, it's just differently ordered. We're not pursuing procreation. We're just open to it. There's nothing wrong. You know, and I think you've got the problem. If you think NFP is evil or unnatural, I think you need to adjust, okay? So, continue.
I couldn't ask Barry to change who he is. That would make him really sad.
You know, when you start telling people that NFP is wrong, that could make people really sad, couldn't it? Yeah.
But
Gulliver, accepting people for who they are is a very important skill.
We shouldn't judge. We shouldn't judge. This is why people feel good in the fandom. That's so dorky. Look, a bunch of people dressing up like dogs and kind of like it's their alternative experience. becoming a furry, someone could probably tell me exactly what that's like, but it's just sort of I don't know, a paradigm shift where you break on through to the other side, and now you're kind of like one of them, even if you don't have your suit on. You know, like I say, it's sort of I think it's like the new punk rock. When you're looking for your identity, or you're not quite cutting it in the normal set, in reality, you can freak out, but everyone else is like into it with you. So what's the problem? Well, like I said, that problem with that furry stuff is almost nobody is innocent in the group. There's a bunch of damaged people that are like doing their thing, and that thing gets weird quick. And there's all sorts of videos about it if you want to know.
We accept you for who you are.
Notice the contradiction that the teacher says we have to accept people for who they are, but she absolutely refuses to accept normal dogs' normal reaction to a dog who is deluded and thinks he's a cat.
So this girl is not accepting normal, okay? And just like the NFP people do not accept normal, she's like an NFP person. And here's some normal dude saying, "Hey, this is not cool for dogs," and she's like, "Oh, really? Why don't you just grow there, buddy?"
That's different. I'm a dog who acts like a dog. That's normal.
Not normal, just more common.
Oh, and there's no such thing.
Yes, just more common. You know, to like have babies, that's just more common. But if you need to use your conjugal acts to not have babies, that's okay too. And I started to cut him. I'm going to go back. It's so good. It's just such a small time here.
Normal, just more common.
Oh, and there's no such thing as normal or way things that are supposed to be, just things that are statistically common. That's why we need to teach children about things like natural law to combat.
Yes, teach children things like natural law. That's right. So what's going on here on the flip side, though, and what we need to teach people is what the natural purpose of the conjugal act. This is the complete 180 that's been done, because we've put love from secondary to primary now. That's the primary building block. This is just so good. I got to replay it just a little bit. It's just so cool. Hang on. No. Okay, go ahead.
Who acts like a dog. That's normal.
Not normal, just more common.
Oh, and there's no such thing as normal or way things that are supposed to be, just things that are statistically common. That's why we need to teach children about things like natural law to combat this stuff.
I don't understand.
It's okay to have questions. Questions are good if they help you to accept someone for who they are.
The video is also kind of sloppy because it reinforces the idea that a transgender person is confused about their objective identity, just as this dog is simply wrong when he thinks he's a cat. The video makes it seem like that even if he acts like a cat but isn't, we just shouldn't care. The video can't even go all in and say the confused dog is really a trans dog or is trans species, because most people would immediately recognize that's insane.
If he acts like a cat but isn't, we just shouldn't care. Okay, if you use your conjugal acts to not get pregnant, we just shouldn't care. This is that's kind of at the heart of this. So because if it's all nature and we can't judge what someone's doing, we can't judge anything that's nature, because marriage is locked in by nature.
The video can't even go all in and say the confused dog is really a trans dog or is trans species, because most people would immediately recognize that's insane. Well, most people. Because you see, TikTok is full of people who identify as Therians, people who say they're some kind of animal. The Therian identity is also described in Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman?
Kids that are identifying as animals going to school, and they are purring instead of answering questions, and they meow, and the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
So
teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity. We cannot question what somebody is doing with their conjugal act because it's considered, love isn't defined. And I'm going to prove it and show it in a minute with some notes why it's not, and no one does define it, including Cardinal Burke, by the way. We got some audio from him. This is why we're kind of all furries now, and we're all Therians now, because who you can't judge somebody's love, right? You let them do what they're going to do. That's their thing. Can't judge it. It's nature, because, as I said, we got to remember, we're talking marriage here, which is bound by nature, but not anymore. Hang on. But it is and it isn't, right? Just depends.
You have kids that are going to school and they're saying, I'm a cat. Mm-hmm. And the teachers have to affirm them as a cat.
Yes. So it's
the
not
schools
just
are
the
like
young ones.
literal zoos now, basically.
They are.
We have to affirm her as a cat, and we have to affirm motherhood, or matrimony is no longer for motherhood, but it's for love. Okay. So you can do what you need to do if it's for love. And obviously this chick loves her catness. So what are we going to, who are we going to say this is not right? It's nature, because your marriage, which is nature, is love, which is what you say it is. So she's saying she's a cat, and you're saying, when you use NFP, that you are not supposed to get pregnant when you do the conjugal act. You like they say, y'all redefine, we redefine. She's redefining right there, because you already did. You got no leg to stand on, Trent Horn, if you say that NFP is nature. No leg to stand on. Like I said, the more NFP you want, the furrier you're going to get. And the more trans and the more IVF and everything else. We're going to cover some of that, too. I got arguments for you.
I am a 27-year-old transgender woman. I am a Wolf-Therian and a member of the furry fandom.
A Wolf-Therian and a member of the furry fandom. That's why people have a bad vibes about furries, because when you show up to a furry meeting, like, a large percentage are people like that, or usually they're just kind of like white guys that aren't cutting it somehow, so they get in on people, right? It's just, there's all kinds of issues going on. It's like picking up a guitar. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, but you start hanging out with big rock stars, you're going to be smoking coke, or you're going to be doing coke before long. It's just what happens. So when you become a furry, you're, number one, you're vulnerable, and you're just accepting of everything or whatever, unless you're this Christian furry, which is a contradiction in terms, sort of like Christian rock. But you're going to get in with this group, and they're going to mess you up. And hopefully, I'm praying for my daughter to actually get confirmed, and then snap out of this thing. You know, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat.
When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around age 10 or 11. I was watching an anime about wolves and see the wolf running across the screen, and I'm somehow just intrinsically like, oh, that's me.
Yeah. See, she studied, she prayerfully thought, she followed her conscience or whatever, you know what I mean? And she thought, click, that's me. And then when people say, you know, I know about 1 Timothy 2:15, and you shall be saved through childbearing, but I just don't think God wants. The Holy Spirit's calling me to not have more kids right now, and that's just me. So we can do this family planning, and everyone says it's good, just like everyone says furries are good, and we can't judge anybody, right? You know, and when like you go to public school, I'll show you that video in a minute. Public school, we can't judge. Hey, you can't judge anyone's NFP anymore, because it's all part of love, and we can't. Okay, got it. Keep connecting the dots there.
We even have middle schoolers protesting other students being allowed to identify as animals and harass other students, as can be seen in this recent news clip.
Nearly 75 students and parents showed up facing the school, saying they're unhappy with how administration is handling reports of harassment.
Okay. You guys cannot record me without my permission!
There is a perfect, there's a furry chick right there, no doubt. And she's got some emotional stuff. She's probably got some problems at home. And so she likes to chill with the furries because they're all accepting, but she's damaged and she's vulnerable. And this is the problem with this stuff when we don't stamp it out. How do we stamp it out? We have to get back to nature, baby. Procreation alone is the purpose, the essential purpose. When you blow that off, you, like they say, open the windows to the church, let in the fresh air. Now you've made the temperature in church the same as the temperature outside of church. I heard that line recently. So if you say NFP is nature, you have to say everything is nature, because you can't argue otherwise. You cannot. You have said marriage is nature. Marriage is not for procreation if you don't want it to be, and it's for love, and love is undefined. Therefore, you define, we all redefine together, right? Let's go to some notes, and then we'll go back to another video about marriage, which is kind of cool. So we're going to shift into some more marriage stuff. We're going to like shut down some of the furry stuff for a little bit, okay? Here, share this. Now, I know it's a little bit unorganized. We're just going to, this is for some of you just nerds out there that want to get some more info, and we'll take notes, and I'll put show notes. I'll put all the show notes in the comments, and of course, I'm really good with comments, meaning I'll talk to you as much as you want about whatever you want. Versus, and I think most people on YouTube, they barely respond, or they don't, or they block you or whatnot. Not here, not old annulment proof. I have no life, and I'm ready to talk. So, Chat GPT. I asked Chat GPT about marriage and what's all this love stuff and whatever. And you rattle through some things with them. They're very politically correct. They don't want to admit the truth, but they are forced to sometimes if you corner them, and they still squeak away. They say, well, some say this and some kind of feel that way. I said, Chat GPT, so marriage is the right to marital communion, isn't it? That's the new Catholic marriage, the right to marital communion. The total partnership of life and love and all that. Isn't that right now? And I say, yeah. And I go, okay, so what is the right to marital communion? If you're consenting to that right, give me some of my marital communion. I want perfect marital communion, or I want 77 measures of marital communion, whatever. Give it to me. The short answer, there is no definition of the right to marital communion. Okay, it is not a defined term like the right over the body once was. So we have waved bye-bye to nature, because that's the way it once was. And you know who else agrees with that? None other than Cardinal Burke. Why don't we take this opportunity to go through a little Cardinal Burke? I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to listen to the audio. In 2011, he was up in his old stopping grounds of Wisconsin, I think, talking to a bunch of canon lawyers. And he said, where did he say it? It's right here. Where is it? Okay, here's what he said. So, yeah. He says there is no accepted description of the essential elements of marriage. That's what he admitted. But I was listening to this stuff for years. This is why you need old annulment proof to bring this to your attention and try to get it straight for you, because it's really easy to get obfuscated and hidden. All right. We got the exact words right here. He says, it goes without saying that not all elements pertaining to the bonum conjugum, the good of the spouses, which is the new building block, okay, can be considered as essential with respect to the consortium totius vitae. All right, so what he's saying is the partnership of the whole of life, that is the new building block. The new object of consent is partnership, which has now no definition. It used to be a society, but now they call it a partnership. So it goes without saying that the good, not everything that's good of the spouses is essential. You know, like, let's say you want your husband to, but you want your wife to paint her fingernails black and she likes them red. That is not essential to marriage. Everyone would kind of agree with that. Okay, so what is essential as far as good of this? What if I really feel my love language is when she has black fingernails, and that's what I gotta have? What are you gonna do about it? Who are you gonna judge me and what I need for love? This is what I need, man. You know, because I was in a punk rock band and they just had black fingernails, and that's what I need from her. And you know, it's like, okay, so consequently, the exclusion of the non-essential elements does not bring about the nullity of marriage. Yeah, that's right. Because if you do not include certain fingernail polish, that doesn't mean your marriage is null. Okay. In other words, now while the bonum conjugum, the good of the spouses, is considered an essential element of the consortium totius vitae, which is kind of a confusing way to say as long as what is good is now essential, is now legally essence of marriage, what is good, there is no accepted description of the contents of the bonum conjugum, both regarding its essential and non-essential elements. AKA, we cannot define good, therefore we cannot define marriage. So nature is undefined because marriage is nature. I can't wait to get to more of this, but we're going to go to the audio of Cardinal Burke saying this, and then I'm going to make another point. Hold on. Where is it? It's right here. All right. Cardinal Burke, don't be shy. Tell us what you got.
Obviously, as causes are appealed in second or third instance to the Roman rota.
Go ahead.
It observes, it goes without saying that not all elements pertaining to the bonum conjugum can be considered as essential with respect to the consortium totius vitae. And consequently, the exclusion of the non-essential elements does not bring about the nullity of the marriage. In other words, while now the bonum conjugum is considered an essential element of the consortium totius vitae.
Well, now the bonum conjugum is considered essential. See, like I said in the notes, it used to be the right over the body, but not anymore. Now we consider good / love / partnership / total union, communion as essence. That's what we consider it now. We have redefined marriage, and the furries are like, we're redefining normal. So step off, Catholics, because you are saying what nature is, and so are we. What are you going to do about that? You know what I mean? It's like, I can think of a lot of analogies, but I think you catch on what I'm saying.
There is no accepted description of the contents of the bonum conjugum.
Uh-huh.
Both regarding its essential and non-essential elements.
Okay. All right. No accepted description of the essential and non-essential elements. He when he says this, he uses a, remember I talked about big words in the last video? This is more big word of problems, because he's saying it to a bunch of canonists, but still, if you say things clearly, he is admitting we've made love wins canonical and we cannot do anything with it. So what are we going to do? He's going to make a really dumb joke here. It's super lame. And we're going to move on. And we're not going to answer questions. And no one's allowed to ask questions. Just like when you asked that little schoolgirl questions about her furry stuff, what does she start doing? She starts screaming. So what happens when you ask a canon lawyer at the tribunal any of these questions? They do a controlled scream and they push block. That's what they won't talk. I would love to get any canon lawyer on an annulment proof channel to talk, especially anyone from a tribunal. Why not? You guys are doing all the Lord's work and it's goes so great and you're just helping. I got lots of questions. You know what I mean? No way, ain't no way you're going to come on and talk. No way. Because you open your mouth, you're in big trouble. You cannot defend it. I would love it if you would try. That would be cool. It'd be totally cool. It's almost like having an abortionist to talk in a pro-life forum. They're hosed. They're going to kill babies and get out of here. And that's all that's going to happen. We're going to redefine marriage and get out. And this is the new paganism, the worship of the body, the worship of the conjugal act, and the worship of flesh. And that idol takes no prisoners, man. Serious stuff. Kids get trashed, families get trashed, nature gets trashed, society gets trashed, but who cares? Just like when Rome fell, they're going to do what they're going to do. Sodom and Gomorrah, we're going to do what we're going to do. Ain't no stopping us now, right? I talk too much. Let's go, Cardinal Burke.
For example, the bonum conjugum is not offended by burning the toast.
Okay, here's his super lame joke. It's like making Holocaust jokes with a bunch of Jews in the room. It's really weak because he's saying, let me play the joke and I'm going to comment on it.
The bonum conjugum is not offended by burning the toast regularly, or this kind of.
Isn't that funny? So he's saying, listen, his voice, his tone of voice changed. I didn't like it at all. He's like, so we don't know what's essential and what's not essential when it comes to good. Okay. We know good is essential, but we don't know how much good. If this magic marker is good of the spouses, we don't know where on the spectrum good is and good isn't. Maybe you need everything in this black cat. Maybe you need some. Maybe you need all. No one can define it. But he's saying we are defining that if you burn the toast regularly, that does not offend good of the spouses. Says who? What if my love language, I need someone to really respond to me and give them their total gift of self, and they burn the toast? My wife burns the toast and has intentionally, and never given me the avocado on the toast that I wanted. And she's done this for 20 years and she's incapable of love. The marriage is invalid because that's what I've decided. And I'm going to be a huge pain in the booty, and then it's going to prove that she can't do marriage because this is essential to me. I've decided marriage isn't valid. Who are you going to tell me what part of essential? You can't. There is no there. When you start making good the essence of marriage and you can't define the legal essence, you got nothing. And Cardinal Burke will say, well, you just positively can't will the bad. Well, okay. If she doesn't have the fingernails that I want and she doesn't cook the toast the way I want, that's bad according to me, because this is a total partnership. This isn't like an objective thing. You do this and I do this. No, a partnership must work together for unity. And this is not this toast and these fingernails are screwing everything up. Invalid. Who are you to judge? You ain't. That's why you can get the annulment is on demand. So there's some more proof from Cardinal Burke. He is raising his hand and saying, I was at the apostolic signature, the grand poobah, the head dude, major canon lawyer. I can't define marriage. Who are you going? You can't either. Nobody can. Now, before we get to the next video, let's go back to some notes, and I'm going to make that point. I forgot exactly which one, but it doesn't matter. We'll go back to the top here. Hold on. Oh, no. Share this tab instead. All right. Okay. I guess we'll come back to divorce, IVF, contraception. Okay, so here's contraception. The CCC 1603, the intimate community of life and love which constitutes the married state. New building block of civilization is the intimate community of life and love, and proper fingernail color and proper avocado toast preparation. That's my intimate community, and that constitutes the married state for me. And you can't say otherwise, because you have no accepted description. I'm the one who's going to accept it. I get to decide myself. This is what's good for me. You can't define good for me. Okay. Now let's prove why love cannot be essential to marriage. There's several ways, but here's one way. I'm just listening to the sermon today at Latin Mass, and then the priest was explaining how when you're baptized, you get the grace of supernatural charity. Not natural, but supernatural charity, which is what you need to love supernaturally, which is what they're saying is required in marriage. However, because marriage is an office of nature, you cannot require supernature. You can't. The marriage is identical for the unbaptized and for the baptized as far as the contract, the object. All right. So you cannot say we have marriage as a different animal for baptized versus unbaptized. It's the same because of marriage's nature. So in the Bible, it says charity never fails. Okay, so if charity never fails and everyone who is baptized is capable of charity, because you necessarily get the grace of love, of charity, when you're baptized. Every marriage is valid because you are all capable of communion of life and love, because you know how to make babies and you know how to love because you can love. Doesn't mean you will, but you can. You are capable. But no, Canon 1095. So all these annulments are based on incapacity for love. All of, like, the lion's share, tons of them. Incapacity for love is a lie, because if you're baptized, you necessarily have capacity for supernatural love. But even if you're not baptized, you still have enough capacity for love based on Cardinal Burke, because he's saying the only thing that this bonum conjugum, this good of the spouses, could mean is you're not trying to do bad things. You're not trying to hurt them. You're not trying to will their bad. Okay, so who out there that's not even baptized wills the bad? Let's look at what the Bible says, Matthew 5:43. You have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, do good to them that hate you, and pray for the persecute, then calumniate you, that you may be the children of your Father who is in heaven. All right, sounds great. Who maketh his sun rise above the good and the bad, and reigneth upon the just and the unjust. For if you love them that love you, what reward shall you have? Even the publicans, do not even the publicans do this? Yes. The unbaptized, those not in the covenant, hello, they love who are loved. In other words, they'll love who loves them. So look, anybody will do this. Therefore, any of these marriages, baptized, unbaptized, where you're not capable of good, aka love, are error. This is why we have to get back to nature, Trent Horn. And the only way that's going to happen is you have to say the purpose of the conjugal act has zero legally, naturally to do with love, charity, nothing. But now we're saying, no, it's this dual purpose. No. You can't have a dual purpose. Just like you can't drive your car in two different directions at the same time. You have to pursue one thing primarily. And when you say open to life, you are saying it's a secondary purpose. So, and if you salute your brethren only, what do you more? Do not the heathens do this? Yeah, so they're all like, hey, bro, like everyone in Hell's Angels gets along for the most part, right? Even presuming they're not baptized or something, So be you therefore perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Is then accept everything is from God. You accept your cross. There, I proved it right there. Because charity never fails, and everyone has, all the baptized have supernatural charity. You cannot include charity in the legal description. No place for it. You're going to have problems until we fix the legal definition of marriage. Constant problems. Do you think annulment rates are going to go down? No. People are just abandoning marriage. Why am I hooking up to a contract that's undefined? And then people are incentivized to leave, which I'll get to in a little bit on another video. It's kind of cool. I could go talk all day. There's so many videos to get to. I just happened to see this one like 10 minutes before I push play on this. And I'm like, wow, we got to put that on there. Now, while we're on a roll, let's go through a little bit of more ChatGPT and divorce, for example, how NFP allows divorce. All right. So I asked ChatGPT, whatever, about canon law 1692. I said, doesn't that mean you have to have the bishop's permission to divorce? Because everyone will say, no, it does not anymore. ChatGPT admits it. This is canon 1692. The personal separation of baptized spouses, notice I say baptized because that's the bishop in charge, can be decided by a decree of the diocesan bishop. And the reason is because what God has joined, let not man put asunder. Nothing to do with invalidity. It has to do with sin. So when there's a problem, when there's something wrong, the bishop is the only guy who can break the marriage contract. CCC 2384. He's the only one who can lay claim to it. It's the bishop. If it is foreseen that there will be a civil judgment not contrary to divine law, which means that if the innocent spouse is going to get the kids and the house and the money and everything else, the bishop of this diocese which the spouses are living in can, in light of their particular circumstances, not general, but particular, give them permission to approach the civil courts. Okay? So if you've got super drunk, bad guy husband who just is like bad, totally bad, and he's not going to show up to court, and the judge is going to give the wife everything, then he's like, go ahead, you can go to court because I'll support that parenting plan. The education rights belong to the guarantor of your children's education is the bishop, not the state. But now when we have love wins, the state takes over because the bishop is like, I can't define the contract anymore. So it's a no-fault situation. Susie, stop scratching your fleas, girlfriend. Just chill. Okay. She likes to stay down here by my feet. If the case is concerned with the merely civil effects of marriage, okay. Susie, why don't you go, hang on, I'm going to push pause and get her out here. Just a second. Just a second. Maybe I'll get her. Here, you want? Okay, she left. She let herself out. Bye-bye. Poor doggy. She is so excited for life generally. I take her for lots of walks and run all over the place, but sometimes she jumps out of her skin. She has panic attacks. She's so excited. She'll be pregnant here soon enough. I know a boyfriend for her. It'll all be in the church, of course. Now, merely civil effects of marriage. What are those? Tax filing status. Okay. But now their bishop's like, oh, these merely civil effects. Everything is civil effects. Even your kids belong to the state because love has no definition. I got nothing to do here. Marriage is just this love sign, baby, like Christ in his church. As long as the love sign is there, fine. But as far as what happens below the heavens, we have nothing. That's all state. Wrong, no. Okay. So here's what ChatGPT says. This is ChatGPT's quote. While Canon 1692 requires Catholics to obtain permission from their local bishop before approaching the civil court for separation or divorce. See, they're admitting that. And the reason why is because divine law. Let no man put asunder. That's why. This isn't like a bishop rule. This isn't like an ecclesiastical rule. This is divine law. Anyway, it is frequently bypassed in the English-speaking world. It's always bypassed in the entire world, as a matter of fact. They say this English-speaking world stuff to make it sound like, well, they do it here and they don't do it here and everything's cool, right? No, it's universal. You have to go to Mass every Sunday. It doesn't matter if the bishops enforce it or not. You have to go. That's, it's like divine law. 10 Commandments. Its application varies globally. No. Hang on, let's keep going. It is more actively applied in parts of the world where the Catholic Church maintains strong established legal structures. Oh, like maybe USA? I mean, where does the Catholic Church remain strong established legal? Catholic Church has its own law. It doesn't need civil law to do what it needs to do. In countries with concordats, legal agreements like this. So they're just saying a bunch of stuff to make you go, I don't understand it. Okay, fine. I guess the bishops are right. It's too complicated. No. All that concordat just means is the church is farming out its separations to the state, and the state is informed on what divine law is. And they ain't happening anywhere except like a couple places, and that's cool and all, but this is why your marriage must go through the bishop. That's why we always had separation courts. And as I've said before, if you ever want to ask, you want to see your tribunal go deer in the headlights, ask them what happened to the separation courts after 1970. Where did the separation courts go? And they'll be like, it's like the U.S. government hiding their UFOs and stuff. They're like, well, there's nothing here. You can't belong. Area 51, get out. There's your answer. Get out. We're going to take your cameras. You're out. There's their answer to the question, what happened to the separation courts? Leave now or we're calling security. That is the answer of the tribunal and the bishop. Leave now or we're calling security. Okay. With the Vatican and in regions where marriage, okay, this is rich. You got to get the bishop's permission to divorce in regions where marriage is viewed through a more strictly traditional lens. So we need to view more strictly traditional lens. That's like mishmash, stupid words. In other words, where people actually follow the faith, that's where you're supposed to do it. How about Toledo? No faithful there, right? Of course not, because everyone is like in the little doggy video. Trent Horn is like that. Is like the PC social justice warrior white girl saying, "Yeah, hey, the dog is like licking his paws and playing with yarn, and that's just there's nothing wrong. It's just different, okay." Yeah, the people there, some people like to go to the bishop, but some people don't, and it's fine. Whatever they want to do. We can't judge their situation. It's just part of it's just civil. There's nothing to see. Trent Horn wouldn't ask. I could try. He's in his ivory tower. I can try to ask him questions. I've tried to email him. It's like, various ways. No, can't go there. Here's how 1692 applied in other parts of the world. Blah, concordats. Yeah. Whatever. Latin America, cool. Often encourages. Okay, this is stupid. I could go through all this. It's going to take too long. You can read if you want, and you can ask me all the questions you can possibly think of in comments. Okay, what about Philippines? That's where everyone's super Catholic, right? In many traditional Catholic civil law jurisdictions, the church structure often encourages, at least theoretically, the diocesan investigation of marriage difficulties before civil divorce is initiated, aligning with the intent. What a bunch of weasel slop stuff. You can quote me on that. This is why ChatGPT is lame. They will give you facts, but when it comes time to say, did you put your hands in the cookie jar? Well, cookie jar is really an interesting topic, and hands could be all over the place. Some people have called me handsy. I think Cookie Monster is a really cool guy, and you know what? He doesn't always use his hands. Sometimes he just uses his mouth. So there's my answer. Can men get pregnant? It depends on what you mean by pregnant. That's a word that starts with P, kind of like pusillanimous. They don't answer. So this is stupid. The church structure often encourages, no, divine law mandates no bishop can dispense with this process. Canon Law 87. This is how retarded. This is why they will not talk about it, because they have nothing to defend themselves except the police, the locked door, the blocked internet, the unplugged phone line. Those are their those are their arguments. Civil law versus common laws. The English-speaking world largely operates under common law, which generally does not recognize generally does not recognize canonical requirements. It doesn't recognize them at all. In contrast, civil law jurisdictions where common in Europe and Latin America sometimes have legal frameworks that are more amenable to incorporating aspects of canon. Doesn't make any difference. This is a bunch of Chat GPT explaining to him. It says nothing. Active diocesan tribunals in parts of the world with heavily staffed diocesan tribunals. Parts of Europe, bishops. Okay, so if you got a heavily staffed diocesan tribunal, boy, I think there's plenty of them around the USA too. Bishops may use the canonical separation process. They might use the process more frequently as a way to pastorally manage separated couples before allowing them to approach the civil forum. Pastorally manage. Get permission or go to hell. There it is. That's the pastoral management right there. And they're not doing it because they cannot say anything is just or unjust, because we can't define good of the spouses. It's somewhere on a continuum here, and nobody can say where, because there's no accepted description legally. So no pope can say you need to be exactly this good or the marriage is invalid, and we can't define where. So the bishop cannot enforce the canon law because there's nothing to say I'm violating it or I'm not violating it, because there's no contract anymore. I'll get to that in a minute. Factors inhibiting universal application. Even outside the English-speaking world, Can 69.2 is not enforced. Because no-fault divorce is now the norm globally. Yeah, and okay, it's no-fault divorce is the norm because everything has fallen to the lowest common denominator, which is your will, your feelings, your judgment. Just like the chick who's a little wolf pup cat, whatever the heck she was, that's her gig. No fault, no judgment, no nature. Or your nature is your nature. You have your truth, my truth. You got your nature, I got my nature. I can't judge your nature. You can't judge my NFP, my natural family planning, your natural furry planning. Don't judge my NFP, and I won't judge your NFP because I can't even if I wanted to. So that's the norm globally, rendering the requirement to ask a bishop for permission practically difficult or irrelevant in the eyes of... No, it's completely irrelevant in the state because the state doesn't have anything to do with divine law. But you know what? I think the church has something to do with divine law. I think the bishop kind of should maybe sort of consider a little bit of maybe perhaps pastorally touching upon maybe saying divine law and like dealing with it. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that would be unpastoral. Yeah, except all the trash that happens as a result is way worse. All the annulments, all the divorce, all the IVF, all the trans, the homo, the furry, and their furry friends. That's what you get when you worship the body. You worship the conjugal act with the new paganism. You get everything that comes with it. Same with Sodom and Gomorrah, same with ancient Rome. They throw their kids over the wall for the wolves. We throw our kids to the furries and say it's good. Furthermore, Canon 69.2 acknowledges that where an ecclesiastical decision does not produce civil effects, a bishop may allow a couple to go directly to the civil court. Where ecclesiastical decision is not... Yeah, that is technically true, except only if it doesn't violate divine law. And so the bishop must adjudicate the separation decree first, which is why we had those separation courts I was talking about, and I've talked about in other videos, in order to get it everything straight with divine law. The innocent spouse gets the money, house, kids, education rights. Guilty spouse gets nothing unless they want to stop being guilty. There's pastoral for you. Give such a one to Satan for the... what is it for this? So they can save their soul. Give such a one to deliver such a one to Satan for the destruction of their flesh. So on the last day they can be saved. You know what I mean? In other words, tell people they're going to hell. If you don't do that, you're just playing nice with the devil. And you know what? Next thing you know, you got a furry in your family. Okay. Now, I think I asked ChatGPT, how do you enforce this or whatever? While there is no, I'm going to sneeze just a minute. Okay, let's check out this police force question. So I asked, ChatGPT about it. While there is no ecclesiastical police force to physically enforce Canon 1692, the Catholic Church relies on a combination of pastoral discipline, sacramental consequences, and in rare cases, judicial penalties. Really? Okay, that's pretty cool. There is no ecclesiastical police force to physically enforce. That's right. So that what they do is they harness the state to do their bidding. With no fault, the person who's seeking their good harnesses the state to do their bidding. So if good is essential, if love is essential, and my love language says, I need this kind of avocado toast and this color fingernails, or we're out. And guess what? I'm taking the kids in the house and you're going to deal with it. And the state is going to back me up because they're going to enforce my physical wishes. And the bishop's like, it's just civil effects. Okay. Just like saying furries are, well, that's just nature. Nothing we can do. Therians, that's just nature. NFP, it's just nature. Not having kids, that's nature. Okay. So Sacramental consequences. Boy, oh boy. What are the sacramental consequences to enforce Canon 1692 asking the bishop's permission before divorce? What could they possibly be? Here is how the church can theoretically or practically enforce a requirement for bishop's permission before seeking civil divorce. Presuming we can define marriage, then we can say you're violating the marriage contract. But if you can't define marriage, you're never violating the contract because there ain't no contract because there's nothing there. We have no accepted description. Thank you, Cardinal Burke. So we're going to call it a covenant and leave it up to God and give the rest to the state. That's all that's going on. This will never endure, ever. It's just going to perpetuate more love-based tyranny of the will. So you do get a certain percentage of people that kind of eke it out or figure it out or whatever. But the other percentage, just like, hey, some people need the cops to show up to their door and kick their door down and give them a little talking to and handcuffs and smash them over the head. A certain percentage is going to need that. That's just what it is. Most people are like, yeah, okay, I'll be cool. But a lot of people won't. Sacramental restrictions. The most common enforcement is the denial of Eucharist. Ding, ding, ding. Hello. They're actually saying it. This is the stuff that no one's allowed to talk about. No one ever says anymore. Canon 915. Duh. Yes. No one, but ChatGPT is actually spilling the beans. If you don't get the bishop's permission, you can't go to communion. And you know who else doesn't accept this? Layla Miller, Miss Super Pro Marriage, anti-divorce, anti-annulment. Layla Miller doesn't accept this because she'll say, hey, if you want to go get a divorce and you really think you need to, go ahead, because the bishops don't enforce their own stuff about separation. You have to get the bishop's permission. And if you don't, and you really need the money or something, you have the right to support in your marriage contract, but you have to always go and continue to pursue the separation decree. You must pursue divine law. You must pursue due process. You can never stop. You can't just say the bishop doesn't do it. And anyone who's a damsel in distress, they'll talk to you. If you say, look, I got to move out. This is terrible. I need a decree. They're not going to say no. They'll talk to you at that point. It's just what they just do not want to talk to anyone who's trying to preserve the marriage, who's trying to preserve the conjugal life, because they're saying, dude, you're violating her love. She's not feeling the love. You're not capable. We're not going to force anybody. Love can never be forced, right? So there's no contract here. So they just hate this separation court stuff because it absolutely trashes their model, their love language model, their love is law model. Any more questions about that? Comment section. Cool. Under Canon 19, those who obstinately persevere in manifest grave sin are not to be admitted to Holy Communion. And I think Canon 712 or whatever in the Eastern Code says the same thing. No, for public, you're not publicly worthy. Obstinately persevere in manifest grave sin. So if you guys are each spouse is the minister of the sacrament to the other. So if one spouse tells the other in a ministerial position, this is a sin, you cannot do it. And if you continue, you're obstinately persevering in manifest grave sin because I can see it. Therefore, every communion you go to, you're eating and drinking condemnation on yourself. There was a meme going around on Twitter where they had like some lady going to communion and the devil was following her up to communion because she's not in a state of grace. Okay. So even if you're innocent as the wind-driven snow, if you are a manifest grave sinner, it's a scandal and the devil is you're eating and drinking condemnation on yourself publicly. Whether you're now privately is another, God can judge, but as far as public scandal and as far as all the judgment, okay, you're eating and drinking condemnation on yourself if you violate Canon 1692 and go to communion. All right, Layla Miller and all you other, you go ahead and get the bishop's permission to divorce, but if you don't, it's okay. No, it's not okay, because this is divine. We're going to make marriage permanent or not? Are we going to do? It's all theology of the body. Layla Miller and everyone else, including Trent Horn and the rest of them, are all theology of the body. Love wins. NFP is nature. Therefore, love is nature. Therefore, we're not going to define where on this spectrum nature is because it's love. Who knows? Some canonists argue initiating. Okay, let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Some canonists argue that well, what does the NFP spiritual dictator argue? Are we going to care? Anyway, argue that initiating a civil divorce without a grave reason and without the bishop's permission constitutes a sin. Constitutes a sin as it is publicly attacks the bond of marriage. Stupid, dumb, retarded. Let's get our words straight, okay? I don't care what some canonists argue. Initiating a civil divorce, whatever without a grave, I don't care what your reason is. If you initiate a civil divorce, number one, in the USA, it's always wrong because there's always legal separation in all 50 states or equivalent, always. So you can never divorce in the USA. If you're no divorce, there's always legal separation. Okay, grave reason. Yeah, you need a grave reason to separate per Matthew 19:9, and there's other places in the Bible where it says, you make someone an adulteress except for reasons of immorality, fornication. In other words, if they're doing something bad, grave reason, right? That's the exception clause. It's not invalidity. It is sin. Someone's doing something grave. You have a scriptural reason to go against. Let no man put asunder, but only with the bishop's permission. He's the guy who's managing marriage. Marriage is no longer clandestine. It is public. Ever since, I don't know, whatever that clause was that they made in like 1100 or something, because people were getting married in every town. So now it has to be done in church, in-house. Okay, some canonists argue that initiating a civil divorce without a grave reason and without the bishop's permission constitutes such a sin, as it is publicly attached. No, it publicly attacks. It claims public authority over the contract. CCC 2384. Divorce violates nature because you are laying claim to the contract to live together. Oh, so the contract is nature. Therefore, all this charity stuff isn't nature. We already decided that it's supernatural, okay? And it can't be defined, so it can't be contracted. You cannot contract love. You can will it and stuff, but you can't contract love. You can contract rights over the body, but you can't contract the right to the partnership of love. So this whole sentence has all kinds of problems with it, all kinds of weasel words. And you know how I get about weasel words? I try to pin them down, so I already did. If you want me to do it more, I can. Judicial penalties. Ferende sent. Okay, whatever. Bishop has authority to impose. Yeah, that's right. Third Council of Baltimore 126 says it's grave sin to divorce without the bishop's permission, and the bishop will penalize you as he wants. And that is still in force today. 1917 code, 1983 code did not abrogate Third Council of Baltimore 126. Anyone want to argue with that? No problem. No one can dare argue with it because they've got all the evidence. I can show you, no problem. It's still on the books. It's still in a force today. It's ignored because marriage is a covenant of love. Therefore, there's nothing objective about it, and we cannot judge anybody's marriage. It's all civil, baby, and the kids get trashed. But you know what? We get to call baby avoiding nature. And that's what it's all about. What we want to worship, the new paganism. And so people will, people will trash all kinds of stuff for that Sixth Commandment kind of thing, violating Sixth Commandment. While rarely used for Canon 1692, a bishop could theoretically issue a formal warning, really, followed by a penalty. What are you talking about? Penalty, interdict, prohibition from the sacraments if the person continues with a civil divorce against the bishop's explicit command. Wait a minute. Theoretically, okay, a bishop could theoretically issue a formal warning followed by a penalty such as interdict? No, it's automatic. Not only theory, in practice. The bishop can ban anyone from communion he wants if he has cause, if he has a law, because you can't deny the sacraments unless they're doing something wrong. And of course he can. This is all, they make this sound like it's, oh, well, it's just, maybe, I don't know. And like Ed Peters will say, these laws, all these separation decree laws applied when the country was more broadly Christian. That's what he said. That's all this Chat GPT nonsense is saying. Divine law applied when the world was more broadly Christian. Oh, stop it. These guys are all wet. It's what they are is they're all about getting their NFP and everything and the easy annulments. That's what they're about. They're guilty as heck. And the politics are sky high. You want to get in front of somebody's conjugal act? I didn't think so. No. Can't do that. We'll just, even if the kids get trashed, we'll give it. We have youth night and programs for them. And maybe some rock bands at the Eucharistic Congress. Pump them up. We're here to pump you up. Impact on future annulments. In some dioceses, the circumstances of the civil divorce, specifically whether the party sought ecclesiastical permission, may be documented for review as a subsequent petition for, if you're trying to get an annulment after you blew off your spouse and blew off the bishop. Failure to follow Canon 1692 might be used as evidence of a person's lack of regard for the sacramental nature of marriage. No, it's not lack of regard for the sacramental nature of marriage. It is grave sin, and you are violating the rights of the other. But as you know today, there are no rights because they can't be defined because there's no legal description of said rights. So they have to use a bunch of mushy words like this, and no one does jack. Just stay furry, my friends. Civil legal arguments. In unique legal battles, Catholics have attempted to use their prenup agreement to argue in civil court that a spouse's filing for divorce without the bishop's permission is a breach of contract. Yes, definitely. I don't know if anyone does that, but they should, for sure. But when you're getting married, you're not thinking about what if they get divorced? We're going to have to, that's so unromantic. That no, our love, just like Captain and Tennille, will keep us together, right? So, argue in civil court that a spouse is filing divorce without the bishop's permission is a breach of contract. It sure is, but the state doesn't care about the contract because they don't. You ask the state, what are the rights and duties of marriage? They'll say, I don't know. They won't go there. They used to go there, but they don't anymore. Okay, that's why now that we have marital rape, there's no rights. Everything's consent. You have to consent to everything, so there's no rights. There's no contract. There's no alienation of affection because that means you have rights. So it's just free love. That's all it is. That's probably why that stuff doesn't hold up. But while I'm thinking of it, I'm always looking for a civil legal, who is it? Michael Knowles correctly pointed out when he's talking about these all these people doing the quote gender affirming surgeries and they're chopping up kids and stuff. Now they're getting sued because it's obviously Frankenstein ideological trash. They're cutting kids up, and now they're getting sued. So they're like, well, I guess we can't do that anymore. We need to sue the bishops big time because this is a breach of contract. What they're doing, they're saying, yeah, we're going to marry you guys and we're going to get you. We're the guarantors of your contract, except actually we're just totally pretending, but we're not going to tell you that until the time comes. And when you come to us, because you've married your super Catholic, fragilistic, faithful spouse who's not feeling it with their love language anymore, so they're bailing, and they're saying the Holy Spirit's guiding me, the bishop's going to go, what contract? It's a covenant of love, and there's no description, and I don't know. I got to go. Sorry. Hey, good. Sorry, good to know you. No. So it's like, how can they even officiate weddings if they can't even define what the object of consent? It's like there's got to be an angle. There's got to be the amount of people who would come out of the woodwork for the class action lawsuit against the USCCB or the bishops for contract fraud would be an army of people who would be willing to break down a brick wall for this cause, guaranteed. If we could find the legal argument, it's going to take like a can-do kind of lawyer, really, because most lawyers are like, nah, that's just canonical, can't. We've got to get somebody who can put the pieces together and actually. I've thought of a few things, but anyway, if anyone wants to talk to me more about that, that's what's got to end, because these guys are guilty as heck. They all have blood on their hands. They've sold out marriage in the name of love, just like that U2 song. And continuing, pastoral admonishment. At the parish level, the primary enforcement is pastoral exhortation. No, it is denial of sacraments. Because if someone says, look, this is Canon 915, this is manifest sin, boom, denial of sacraments. That's it. Pastoral exhortation, the pastor is going to say, hey, I can't get involved. I've already talked to her or him, and, go see counselors. It's just a love thing. Perfect your love. A pastor may refuse to grant a letter of good standing or roles in the parish leadership. No, I think you can, nowadays, good standing. Parish leadership, godparent flagrantly ignored the bishop's authority, who has flagrantly ignored the bishop's authority. Now, look, if you're ignoring the bishop's authority, sorry, everyone ignores the bishop's authority today, even the bishop. You can't. God doesn't ignore it, just everyone else does. Just like everyone in the picture is like, hey, that little doggy with the rainbow collar who thinks he's a cat and that lady who thinks she's a wolf, hey, they're ignoring nature, but we're ignoring nature too. Everyone's ignoring nature. Just go along. You're like that dog. You're like the dog who's saying, this is weird. I'm a dog. Someone should talk to that. Talk to that rainbow dog who thinks he's a cat and plays with yarn. This is weird. It's just different. It's not disordered. It's just differently ordered. That's one of my favorite lines from Laura Horn. I had to say it twice. Oh, this is good. This is from a letter that a friend of mine, Cheryl, wrote to Bishop Olmsted, and it got on ChatGPT. Despite these mechanisms, many bishops, such as Bishop Thomas Olmsted, have stated they do not view Canon 1692 as a judicial imperative. That needs to compel, often leaving the matter to the individual's conscience. What have I been saying all along? Furries, Therians, NFP, divorce, IVF, homo, trans is a matter to the individual's conscience, because nature is now individual conscience. Should you use nature to get pregnant or not get pregnant? It's up to you. It's follow your conscience. There's not a judicial imperative anymore. You're going to say that trans is not natural? Oh, really? That's rich. Coming from you, a Catholic, who says that using the conjugal act to get unpregnant, to not get pregnant, is natural. Oh, spare me. You're like, whoa, this kind of hits home. I just got my 12 record set from Christopher West, and I've been listening to Timothy Gordon, and they're like, NFP is cool. It's just nuts and bolts, and that's all you need. Following my conscience. I better shut up. Yeah, you better shut up. And we're going to get furrier and furrier and weirder, and there ain't nothing you can do because you're addicted. I should play this song. You're addicted to love. I'm going to have another video all about that one. Someone taught me, Pat Benatar, the lyrics in that song. I could do a video just on the lyrics of that song and the new feminism. Anyway, right here, before we get to our next video, you guys are so patient listening to me rant. Marriage is a permanent society. This is the 1917 code. It is a permanent society. That's not an emotional thing. That's a legal structure. The building block of civilization, measured, structure, natural, objective. Okay? But now, marriage is a permanent partnership. And what does that partnership consist of? We can't tell, because some people like their avocado toast a certain way and some people want their fingernails a certain color, and that partnership is whatever. You got it's 90% this and 10% this, or 80% that and 20%. That's our partnership. So we can't define it for you. Your partnership is something that you work out, follow your conscience, and just go with it, baby. That's it. what we've done is like I said, we've taken marriage and we've slid a bunch of nice sounding stuff up front. And so you bite down on it and you say, we want this love, and look what comes with it. We get to do all these conjugal acts, and we can get an annulment if we want. And I don't have to have 17 kids, and my husband is no longer my Lord, but he is my partner. Where do I sign? And now my kids are turning furry, and my spouse is getting an annulment and a divorce and a new significant other. And my kids think that all sin is subjective. Joe Biden can go to communion because it's in his heart. You can't judge. Okay, that's what comes with it. When you reject nature, you reap the whirlwind, and you're going to have to go back and say bye-bye to your new purpose of marriage. Oh, can't do that because we're addicted like Sodom and Gomorrah in a way. What does the CCC say? Okay, so I asked the cat. Okay, here, we're on a roll, so we'll keep going. I asked ChatGPT about the word contract. Does the catechism use the word contract to define marriage? Because everyone knows it's a covenant, right? Nowadays, we have to say covenant. Okay. It distinguishes marriage as a covenant rather than a mere contract. That's what it says about the CCC. So, like we said, marriage used to be just the right over the body. It's nature, but now it's not just mere nature. It's so much more. It's love, and love is first. And nature is a byproduct. Love is first. Homo is first. Furry is first. Trans is first. Follow your conscience. But the term contract appears when discussing matrimonial consent, the nature of the marital bond, divorce, which claims to break the contract, and related concepts. Hello, that's what I just said. That's right. When you divorce, you are laying claim to the rights of your children and your spouse. You're saying, you know that nice, juicy contract, the money, the kids, the education rights, the conjugal rights? I am taking authority right now. I'm going to put on my bishop's hat, and I'm telling the bishop, move over. Here comes conscience-following spouse. Get out of my way, and no one's going to get hurt. And the bishop's like, wow, anything pastoral you need, just don't be shy. What do you need? Oh, okay. And then it just trashes everything. Okay, here, the word contract appears 8 to 10 times in the English edition of the Catechism, the New Catechism. Did you know that? This 1620, the freedom, you must be free to contract marriage. I thought it was a covenant. 1631, the faithful contract marriage according to ecclesiastical form. So you contract marriage, it's a contract. 2381, breaking the contract, which is based on which it is based. Okay, so when you divorce, you do an adultery, you're breaking the contract. Marriage is based on a contract. It is a contract. It's the contract itself. Leo the 13th, Arcanum 23. Okay, 2384, which is what I said earlier. You claims to break the contract to which the spouses freely consented. You're taking claim to the contract. All right, I think we got through all the notes. Let's go to our, maybe not, but let's go to our next video, and then we'll talk a little bit more about IVF, and if we get some time, I think we will. Hang on. I'm not really sure. This is like some secular dude, you know. He's just kind of like Pearl Davis, just kind of spits out some truth here and there, but we're going to listen. This is like the common man on the street. You know, this is what your average guy is thinking here. Let's listen to what he says.
Narrow outlier form of marriage and allocate some sympathy and maybe make...
Okay, so the video is all about how we need to be this new class of women that we need to have sympathy for, because they're all damsels in distress, they're all abused, they all have these troubles, and we need to not just tell them to get a grip, but we need to, you know, basically jump to their complaints. And that's what he's complaining about. It's like, hey, all these guys are like hanging out doing the marriage, but the wife is like, no. It's been said, there's a quote I heard, men will sacrifice their happiness for their kids. Women will sacrifice their kids for their happiness. Not all, but it's kind of in the nature of men and women. This is why you want to get the contract straight first. Like my little bumper sticker I created was, regarding marriage, define or decline. If you're going to accept, you got to get the definition up front, because ain't no one going to help you. You have all these basically furry Catholics out there saying everything is nature, everything is awesome. So good luck out there. Don't take the bait, even though you're tempted to, because it sounds good and you just don't want any hassles. Go to make yourself a prenup ahead of time. The Catholic Church gives a prenup. I'm talking way too much. Let's listen to what he says, because I'm going to talk about what I'm talking about when he says it.
Some structural changes that say, hey, for those women who are genuinely being harmed inside their marriages, we need to create some surgical, narrow fire exit procedures to be able to get them out of that situation.
Exactly. He says when there's some abuse happening or there's a problem, we need to have some fire exit strategies, procedures in place to deal with that. Welcome to the Catholic Church. What do you think what do you think fault-based divorce is? What do you think separation courts are? What do you think those canon laws are, and the divine law from God saying, do not move out, except for immorality, as in abuse? Then you can separate what God has joined in the contract. But now it can only be done through the bishop, because now the church is in charge of everything. If you're baptized, we're way ahead of you, bro. We got the structure. It's already there. We just have to do it. The Catholic Church has the answer to marriage. The answer to all these problems is the Catholic Church, except the bishops are too furry to want to touch it. Is that disrespectful? Sorry, I hope not.
Me, that's all well and good. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But what happened is that we took those outlier marriages, that dynamic, and the systems we used to help those women, and then we restructured all marriages as though that situation applies, as though this is what's unfolding in all male-female relationships. And
what used to be the exception is now the rule. How did that happen? It's called following your conscience. It's called when you take that contract with objectivity, make it subjective, everybody's going to find something. Push is going to come to shove in every marriage, and typically some personality is going to say, I ain't doing this anymore. And therefore, there can be no structural, there's no more process, because there's no thing objective there to defend or define. And this is why now, once you start saying love wins, people are like, I'm not feeling the love. This is abuse. And I get to leave now. There's the problem right there. It is the object of consent. Once you start making NFP natural, you have destroyed the object of consent. Everything is natural. Everything is marriage. Nothing is marriage. There is no structure. There is no definition. There is no right and wrong. And when you want a bologna sandwich for lunch or you want chicken salad, it's cool. Whatever who can't judge, and that's what happens. Whereas before, everyone had to have the same thing for lunch because that's what you consented to. Now consent is every day. I consent what I want for lunch every day. But back before Vatican II, when you consented to marriage or you consented to lunch, it was done. And no more consenting. That was it. You already consented to the object. But the new object is perpetual consent.
So the barrier to exit for women in marriages has gotten insanely low.
The barrier to exit for women has gotten insanely low. The barrier to exit for everyone has gotten insanely low, but guys don't do it because they'll sacrifice their happiness for their kids, but women will sacrifice their kids for their happiness. So if they want to leave, there is no barrier really. Remember we went through all that ChatGPT stuff? Is the bishop going to do anything? Heck no. Bishop from Arizona, whatever his name was, you know what I'm talking about, the guy who just retired, that guy. Everyone thinks he's really good and conservative. That Bishop Olmsted, even him, the canon lawyer's like, hey, ain't nothing here with this 1692. We don't need the bishop's permission. Even him. And then Cardinal Burke, he do you think he required bishop's permission? No, because marriage is love. Therefore, there's nothing to regulate. You know? We're not going to regulate what people want for lunch every day. What all Catholics want for lunch every day, we're not. It's not the church's position to do, unless that's in the marriage contract and it's a done deal and it's baked, then yes. You're like, hey, we agreed to X per lunch and for lunch forever for life. And now my spouse isn't doing that. The bishop's like, yeah, but now, like I said, I already repeating myself. Keep going.
We don't need to ask the uncomfortable questions of, so what's gone wrong? Is he mistreating you? You know, has something actually physically harmed you? Are you
correct? We're not asking those questions because those were all asked in separation court. Because if you didn't have a backup for your actions to leave, you had to go back home to the old ball and chain. It's called for better or for worse. And let no man put asunder. All that's out the window today. Marriage is love. There's nothing to adjudicate and there's no questions to ask. You just follow your conscience and everything is civil. Your kids belong to the state and your bishop has to admit your kids belong to the state, because any spouse can remove their kids from their current spouse, the other spouse, and say, state, give them to me. And the state will say, done. And I'm going to trans them all and we're going to be a huge furry family. And what are you going to do about it, Catholic spouse? Nothing. Go pray about it. And that's it. Go to a Eucharistic Congress and wave your hands in the air to whatever they got going on music-wise. Gross.
in any kind of danger? No, I'm just unhappy. I'm just not very satisfied. Oh, end the marriage. You know, burn it down. Doesn't matter. Whatever you need, sweetheart. Let's.
Sound familiar? Where's Rose Sweet when you need her? That's right. You're not happy, and if you're not happy, it redounds to the other spouse, and then you got two people going like this. Any spouse can torpedo their marriage relationship unless you happen to be married to like a Saint Monica or Saint Rita or something. Any spouse. You think having a nice, like, successful marriage takes a little work? Yeah, maybe. Kind of like salvation takes a little work. How about trashing your salvation and going to hell? Does that take any work? No. That's pretty easy to do. You okay? Just Sin 101 shouldn't be too hard to figure out. Pretty easy. How about trashing your marriage relationship? Do you think you could do that if you needed? Yeah. How to really mess things up. You don't even need a DVD to sell. You could make something up really easy to really trash that marriage relationship. Then they're not happy, and they're super not happy because you want out. And it's not valid if there's no love, because you're not capable of love, and love is nature, which we already proved is impossible. But we don't want to mess with our conjugal acts all the time now, do we? And we don't want to have all those kids now, do we? And we don't want to have patriarchy now, do we? Because we want to empower through our partnership. And the bishops are like, I don't know what percentage homo they are, but there's a bunch of that going on. So we're willing to get furry with it because of what we want.
Let's enable this without any thought to the damage that it's done to our wider culture and to the other people who are inside that marriage, the men and the children.
The men and the children, that's just mere civil effects, buddy. You sound like you're too sensitive. Do you care about people that are getting, I don't know. That's a little bit profound. I think when you take an intact home and blow it up, you know, when you're like little kids, that's a pretty big deal, isn't it? Yeah, I guess maybe it is. Maybe he's onto something. Maybe we should listen a little bit more. I guess.
Because the inevitable truth is that when you make exiting a marriage easier, you incentivize more of it. It didn't used to be that way. We used to encourage.
Exactly right. When you make, what did he just say? When you incentivize leaving a marriage, you make more of it. Whatever he said. It's so good. I want to play it again. Like they always say, don't enter a contract where you're incentivized to leave. Today in marriage, it's, I get what I want. I get the feeling I want. I get the love I want because I have a right to this interpersonal communion, which has no definition. Therefore, I decide what it is. And if I'm not getting it, I'm out. And you know what? I'm going to punish you on the way out to make it even more clear to me that this was not a real marriage and not a real sacramental marriage because of the way I'm being treated and the feelings I have. And I just know it. The Holy Spirit's telling me. And you know what? I met someone else he or she is really nice. And so I think it's going to be a lot better. I'm following the Holy Spirit on this one. Like I'm following, we still have to talk about IVF.
No, I'm just unhappy. I'm just not very satisfied. Oh, end the marriage. Burn it down. Doesn't matter. Whatever you need, sweetheart. Let's
whatever you need, sweetheart.
Let's enable this without any thought to the damage that it's done to our wider culture and to the other people who are inside that marriage, the men and the children. Because the inevitable truth is that when you make exiting a marriage easier, you incentivize more of it. It didn't used to be that way. We used to encourage people to work on their marriages, to sacrifice, a sense of duty. Like, yes, you're unhappy. Let's work to improve things. No more. Now, all we do is we start to think about, how can we get you out of this arrangement as quickly as possible? But as we'll talk about later, stable marriages are an absolute foundation of society.
How do we get you out of this as soon as possible? That's right. That's what happens because the Bible says if you're going to separate, you got to get back together and you have no alternative, which is why Council of Trent and Arcanum says your friends can easily reconcile you. Kind of like when you run away from home, you're out sleeping under a bridge and you're 12 years old. It's like, yeah, I guess I better get myself back home. This isn't as cool as I thought. But if the bishop in a pastoral way gives you your own house and all the Roblox you can play and all the Doritos you want, you might hang out for a long time in a pastoral kind of way and not go home. And then you can become a furry, a pastoral furry. That's the problem because they're incentivized to leave when it's not cool. So the parents no longer have any control of their kids because if the bishop is giving the kids a halfway house for them if they feel like running away, because you can't force love. If the kid doesn't love you, you can't force them to stay. So we're going to let the kids. That's how dumb this is.
What provide the stability necessary for us to be able to function, most importantly through children. And when you see the statistics on how damaging
no stability
broken homes, divorces are on children, you have to wonder how could we possibly have gone along with this? How could we have enabled this selfish instinct for women who place their own comfort above that of their children?
I need to make some more beard balm. I have all the raw ingredients. Let's listen to what he said again.
Could we possibly have gone along with this? How could we have enabled this selfish instinct for women who place their own comfort above that of their children?
How could we have enabled that? Well, did we already figure? I think you kids know the answer. When you start dangling unlimited conjugal acts, or when you start saying you don't need kids, that's how. That's how. People get the horse and mule going. The devil hath power over them. The art of sinning in a subtle way, and they don't want to give it up. Just ask not only Christopher West, just ask Timothy Gordon if he wants to give up his primary purpose, which is the conjugal act itself. He'll fight you tooth and nail for that. Hopefully he won't someday, but Timothy Gordon is the problem. And so is anyone else who says NFP is legal is the problem. They're just creating this lawlessness and this incentive to get out because marriage is going to get hard for pretty much everybody. And even those storybook marriages you see, there's a lot of hard stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you don't see. And enough people do kind of hang on. You got enough people in the yes column, but there's just like there's criminals that got to get rounded up. There's a whole lot of crime going on, and without the cops, if you tell the cops just be pastoral and allow the crime and give people incentive for the crime, you have, like Governor Tim Walz there, inciting all the people to trash ICE and stuff, you're going to get more of it. So something has to prevail, and right now, all that's happened is the anti-marriage people are everywhere, and Trent Horn is leading the pack with the rest of them.
For their well-being, how has this actually occurred? How did we all get duped by this? Well, it was primarily through an extremely effective narrative that painted women as though they were universally helpless. And this was very sneaky, okay? Because What was necessary was to deny them the obvious agency that they have. Hey guys.
Now it's going to go into commercial. Deny them the various agency that they have. Wait, what did he just say? Let me get that straight. Just a minute.
Effective narrative that painted women as though they were universally helpless. And this was very sneaky, okay? Because what was necessary was to deny them the obvious agency that they have. Hey guys.
Yes, the agency is what did you consent to? That's why I keep going back to the object of consent. Did you choose marriage? Yes. Did you choose it freely? Yes. Did you know what it was? Well, the bishop told me it was a communion of life and love. Yeah, he's wrong. It's all Vatican II poetry that's not binding. You got to go, like I said, if you're going to get married, define it or decline it. If you are married, define it. And when you define it, you bring definition into the room. What happens? There's going to be some sparks, but you've got to man up and take control of it. Otherwise, you have Antifa all over the place, and you have all the anti-ICE people running everything and open borders. What could go wrong? We have open borders, marriage today. I've said that before. I can keep going and going, but you want me to talk to you in the comments, or you want to call me up or email me? Do not to be shy. I'm going to push pause and get to the next segment. This commercial.
All right, let's get back to it. Let's just talk reality for a moment. I know this is not politically correct, but we're going to talk about the truth, which is that women choose their husbands. Okay, nobody forces them to get married, and they certainly don't force them to choose a particular partner over another.
What did I just say? Marriage is a choice, but if marriage is a choice to perpetual choice, it's nothing. And that's what marriage is today. Nothing. It's just perpetual partnership of love, which means no more marital debt, consent. It's perpetual consent. So it's just a living arrangement till further notice. And a lot of times there's further notice.
We're not talking about children. We're talking about adults. Rational, thinking, autonomous adults who have agency. And from the billions of men on the planet, they choose one to get married to. And so you think, wow, like this is a voluntary contract that she was under no pressure to.
Did you say contract? Bro, you're in the Stone Age. What do you think? Women are property? There's no contract. It's a covenant of love. And you know who says so? The first person to say covenant was Calvin in Switzerland in 1539 or whatever it was, because he fired all his bishops. Now he has no guarantor of the rights. So what does he do? He says, we're going to let God sort it out, and we're going to pump up the love. And marriage counseling was born, right? It was. And it's just a matter of time. Once you break nature, once you destroy the authority of marriage, it's just a matter of time before it ripples everywhere. And now the latest iteration of this is natural furry. The furry people are just doing what they find natural. Furry is just kind of like, it's not just, well, I'm going to, oh, by the way, I've always wanted to be Barney. That would be my dream vacation, my dream job. Let me be Barney. I'm going to go downtown and mess with people. That would be a blast. That would be totally fun. But I don't feel like I'm a furry or I'm going to be Barney as my identity. It would just be fun to play around. And so a lot of these furries aren't like that. They're really kind of leaping into, they're breaking on through to the other side. And people will say the furries aren't even, they don't even need a fursuit, a costume, whatever. It's an interior mindset of, I'm in a little bit of an alternative universe, and I basically chill with my furry group, which is a bunch of people somewhere on the spectrum of freaked out and weird, and you have to accept everything. Just like in marriage now, we have to accept everything because we got to find the partnership. So we have to have like open inclusiveness. Therefore, there's no more law. There's no more dominion. There's no more hierarchy. There's just partnership. You want this, I want. We got to meld in the middle somehow, wherever that is. And that basically the reason why all these women divorce, because their will is strong. And they'll go with their passion. They tend to follow emotion. Not all, but a lot. It's like in their nature. This Aquinas talks about this. Alphonsus, Elapide, Augustine, all these guys. There's like, look, this is Bellarmine. They're like women and men are different, and they need to be governed differently. That's why men are in charge. All that stuff is out. It's so politically incorrect now. And then what we do is we slip everybody into NFP, and they're hooked. Now they're part of the system, and they can't give it up. So they've all been compromised. And when you start getting furry with it, I guess you kind of get compromised. And like I said, there's a lot of weird satanic trash in the furry group, and you start rubbing elbows for 5 minutes with them, and you're vulnerable, like that one little girl in the video earlier who was screaming. She just wants her safe space, and she's going to go where the love is, right? Just like when you're married and you're not feeling it anymore, you go where the love is, and you can just walk peace in, peace out, get your annulment.
Sign any contract whatsoever. Like, you could not be more responsible for your own decisions than your choice of life partner. There literally is nobody forcing you to go through with this. And yet look at how much we've bent over backwards to pretend that women are just helpless victims of circumstance. Like,
we're not bending over backwards, but we're saying that if your life partner is going to be based on a partnership rather than rights to the conjugal act for procreation, then we have to call it a partnership, which means there are no rights, which means that the tyranny of will take over. And statistically, the tyranny of will takes over 80% of the time with the women versus the guys. That's why they'll divorce the college-aged 80%.
I had no idea that my marriage was going to end out terribly. I had no idea I was going to be unhappy. How could I possibly have foreseen that? I'm a helpless victim of circumstance.
I never said I was a victim of circumstance. I still belong. Don't get me wrong. You can speak your mind, but not on my time. They will tell you you can't sleep alone in a strange
Anyway, you get the
place.
idea. It's all about you speak your mind, and that's the way it's going to be. And
even a little bit hilarious when you say it out loud. And yet this is one of the principles that, underlies our social system. This belief that we can't possibly hold women accountable for their choices.
check this out. This is exactly what happens in a separation or divorce when partnership and love are in charge.
Calrissian, take the princess and the Wookiee to my ship.
You said they'd be left in the city under my supervision.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
That's right, buddy. I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. Who are you to judge? Who's in charge here? Hey, the bishop? No, it's a love thing. Obviously, Darth Vader is not feeling it, and he has decided he's altering the deal. Wait a minute. What deal was that? It's not specified because what's his face here? Billy D. Williams there was saying, look, we made an agreement. We have a contract. These are the terms. And they're like, what terms? I'm altering the deal. And because I can. Because these terms are not defined in consent. So you should have known that going in. So Darth Vader, Lando Calrissian entered a no-fault contract with Darth Vader, and Darth Vader's like, yep, no fault, no problem. I'm changing the deal. And you know what? I got the Empire on my side, and what do you got? Nothing. You think the bishop's going to help you? Nope. He's saying let Darth Vader follow his conscience. You think the state belongs to the Empire. Why are you going into the Death Star in the first place, or wherever the heck they went? Why are you doing that? This is why I say, do not enter marriage unless you can define it. Define or decline.
How could they know? It's infantilizing, is it not, to treat women as though they have no agency in this regard? But you see that if they succeed with this narrative of female helplessness, it justifies making marriages easier to exit, to break them apart, because
justifies making them easier to exit and break them apart. Yes, because if there's no counter justice, if there's no contract justice, Go ahead and justice is conscience. If you're going to say you can't be a furry, you can't be trans, you can't be homo, says who? Your conscience? My conscience says otherwise. There's no right or wrong here. Are you going to say nature says otherwise? Well, nature says you have to have kids, and you say you don't. So see you later, sucker.
Suddenly, women seem as though they're these helpless victims as opposed to the controlling agents that they actually are. And the other key part of this is that they had to redefine what harm was in a marriage. So you remember I was saying about those narrow, surgical fire exits that we could implement for women who are genuine harm. Everybody agreed, okay, this is a good idea. We need to be able to help those women.
Right. And you have to have a courtroom. You have to have a process. You have to have a hearing. You have to say, what's the harm? That means you have to have fault, because harm is wrong. Harm is fault. But if all we have is partnership, then I can claim that what I'm doing is right, even if it harms everybody else. I have a right to partnership. My conscience is the contract. Pray that I don't alter it further.
And so women quickly learned, okay, so if I'm being harmed, then I'm able to exit. So let's just water down what we really mean by harm. It used to be like, is he physically beating you? Is he denying you basic, food, water, this kind of stuff? Is he...
Like when we had a contract, is there reasons to separate that based on Matthew 19:9 exception clause and other places in the Bible, the exception clause? Is there immorality going on? Is there fornication? Is there adultery? Anything that falls under the heading of adultery is serious, wrong, bad, can't have it. We have fault-based because you have a contract for the right that is objective. Once you start once they legalized contraception, then we Catholics and the Pope went ahead, and said, oh yeah, NFP is now nature. There's nothing anyone can say. And we have devolved into no fault. No fault is the legal process which has replaced Canon 1692 and the separation canons. No fault, because no contract equals no fault equals no rights. All we have today among Catholics is no rights marriage. There are no, you can't, I've said enough.
Making it scary and frightening and unsafe by his behavior. Is he drinking excessively? Is he bringing home other women? I don't know. Genuinely, like an awful, awful marriage. And everyone's like, okay, yeah, you can't stay.
So, yes, like I said, if your marriage is awful, awful, and some spouse is doing something awful, awful, then you go to separation court and you're like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Awful, you're doing all these terrible things. How come? And you're like, did you know my spouse invokes the devil every night and injects all the kids with cocaine? So I did throw an anvil at him because he's doing these things. Oh, we had no idea. Is that true? You've got to have a courtroom to bring it in. If you do not have court, anyone can do whatever they want. I can go punch a policeman in the face and then say, the policeman was mean to me and he was abusing me. And if there's no courtroom, if there's no judge, well, it's the way it is. And the police, it's like no fault crime.
In that's terrible. But for a woman who's just bored, or she just regrets her decision, she didn't really think it through very much. She's just unhappy. She's just unsatisfied. She thinks maybe she can do better. Or maybe she just wants to be free for a while. She doesn't want to have to share her space. She knows that she could get a divorce and keep the house, and then she doesn't have to deal with him. The money will still come through with child custody.
Yeah, like they say, if what would happen if he didn't have to pay anymore, but she had to still do the conjugal act or something. And it was the guy, if he divorces, he still has to do everything. He still has to do his job, but she doesn't have to do her job. That's how that works. He's making good points. I talk too much. Let me rewind him a little bit.
She could get a divorce and keep the house, and then she doesn't have to deal with him. The money will still come through with child custody payments and alimony. Yeah, she's just made the rational, strategic, selfish calculation that she could be better off without him. But I'm not
better off. Correct, because the cross, the relationship, the better or for worse. Worse doesn't feel very good. In fact, worse can feel really bad. And so I'll be better off if I can get out of worse. You know, you ever like, I don't know, had to sleep in your car with no heat or something? That's pretty bad. You don't want to stay there. You want a nice hotel, man. And if you can get an offer of a hotel, forget your vows. You're gone. Instead of dealing with what your problem is, you just leave because you can. Because you have no contract to sleep in your car or get a heater or figure out something else. And so people will take it, and the bishop's like, who, me? What contract? There's nothing to see here. I've tried to ask Bishop Olmsted follow-up questions. I got emails. They're like, no. All these bishops, no. The answer is no.
Really being harmed, I can't make that case. But you know what I could do? Is I could redefine my discomfort as though this is trauma. And that regular like couple friction, those relationship fights we have about, you know, who does the dishes or where we're going to holiday next year. Or who burns the toast. That's right. I'm going to redefine that because no one can tell me I can't, because I have a right to partnership. I have a right to communion of life and love. And you know what? I've decided that it's no longer just here. It's all the way over here. This is what I've decided, and you can't tell me what my relationship or my union or whatever you want to call it is. So this is abusive to me. If I don't get my avocado toast in bed every morning, that's abuse. And therefore, I'm going to act up, and now she's going to get really abusive, and therefore, I now have claim to, I can just do whatever I want because there's like, look, everyone, it's all public opinion. That's all it is. Like I say, if no one can see, I'll go up and hit the cop, and then he starts beating me up, and I'm like, look, abuse, oh, and then the cop gets arrested. No, you know? Not going to be painted as just a normal relationship argument anymore. No, that's suddenly abuse. Like he was abusive. Have you noticed how many men are abusive out there? I'm not talking about men you see abusing women. No, I'm talking about listening to women's accounts.
I think that's enough. That's enough. It keeps going and going. Anyway, so we're going to go right quick. I'm going to finish up here and we're done. We're going to go to this part, IVF. So we already covered why divorce violates nature because it's a natural contract. So when you start following your love conscience, you trash the contract. But then again, we're not talking, but we're just saying covenant nowadays. So this is why divorce violates nature. Unless you have NFP legal, then there's no nature to violate. IVF, nature is love. Did you know that? And the reason why I say that is because marriage is nature. Marriage is a natural construct. Marriage is an office of nature per Aquinas and per the church. But now we're saying love is the contract. Therefore, nature is love. And if love is the contract, I need the offspring of my love, which is kids. And if we need to use IVF to get the fruit of our love, because we have a lot of love, but we're not having kids, it's not working. So we're going to use IVF. So it's nature. And that's why President Trump is like all about it, because he's a can-do kind of guy. He's not Catholic. He just goes for it. So like I said, you legalize NFP, but you say, oh, no IVF. Oh, no vasectomy. Oh, no furry. Oh, no this. Oh, no that. Sorry, you get all of it. And you're going to continue to get all of it. Abortion is just an outgrowth of NFP because you want the conjugal act without the kids. Therefore, everything is conscience and nature is conscience. There you go. I don't even need to talk about homo and trans. We don't need procreation. We just need love. And if procreation happens, fine. And if it doesn't, fine. Because logically, you can only have one telos, as I've said. Anyhow, if you're not against NFP, you're not on the team. So go out there and stay toxic.
It's never too early to become a furry. It's never too early to become a furry. I'm only 13 and I already know